lightweight miracles of nature. A monarch butterfly weighs no more than a paperclip. Yet every year, hundreds of millions of these remarkable creatures fly over 2,000 miles from their summer home in Minnesota to this tiny piece of forest in central Mexico. But that lovely orange and black butterfly we know so well may be doomed because of what's going on here. I'm Jason Davis in the Sierra Cinque Mountains, where we've come to find out what's going on and to tell you how Minnesota researchers and school children are playing a major role in saving the monarchs.
We need to help the butterflies.
I am a monarch butterfly. I love Mexico too. I play too.
Oh my gosh.
Young and old, we are all drawn to this beautiful, harmless creature. Its quiet elegance and apparent fearlessness makes it a wild animal that's user-friendly. And what other creature can be seen by the tens of millions in one glance?
The sensation of being here and the smells and the sounds and the sights was just completely overwhelming to me, and that same feeling comes back every year when I first walk into the colony.
I'm sure I saw a monarch butterfly somewhere. Our Minnesota summers are made all the more colorful by the presence of the monarch butterfly. They are with us from May to September, producing 3 or 4 new generations. But as winter approaches, something tells the last butterflies to emerge that they play a very special role. All of the monarchs east of the Rocky Mountains take off and head south. Soon, as many as 100 million butterflies are in the air on an amazing journey that often exceeds 2,000 miles. Somehow, they must find their way to a small group of Oyamel fir trees, 10,000 feet up in the Sierra Cinque Mountains in central Mexico. But there are many perils on the way, and their destination is threatened by human intervention. You're about to see how the survival of these beautiful insects may depend on the people, schools, and researchers from 3 countries who are working together, saving the monarchs. Last year, environmentalists estimated that the number of monarchs that gathered in Mexico to spend the winter had dwindled by as much as 70%. 2 generations of human encroachment on their summer feeding and breeding grounds and unusual El Niño weather conditions had apparently decimated the numbers. The annual migration of the monarch butterflies has been taking place for at least 10,000 years, but very little is known about how they do it.
And the country then is USA.
So school children in 3 countries are keeping an eye on this annual miracle and sharing the information by computer.
It's amazing to me just how the whole internet works and how they can make the world such a small place. Every time a child or an adult sees a monarch butterfly, they report it, they log it into the computer like this.
A Minneapolis-based education program called Journey North connects over 1,000 schools in Canada, the United States, and Mexico to keep watch over migrating species like the monarchs.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
By studying the dramatic migration of this fragile butterfly, we hope students will come away with an understanding of how fragile these systems are and how dependent we are on them.
Look what I did!
Mrs. Mooney's 2nd graders are part of a pool of more than 500,000 students that keep track of the butterflies in the fall when they head south.
Hey, over here!
The next one is Iowa.
And in the spring as they make their way north.
Next, Wisconsin. I was just fascinated. Of course, I knew a little bit about monarchs, but I never had taken such a close look at them before. Can you think of some things they might be doing in Mexico, like we do here, to make sure that the butterflies have a good place to live?
These kids have learned a lot about the lives of the butterflies they see every summer, and they've written about them.
I met a butterfly named Mary. Mary and I flew to Minnesota. Finally, we were there.
I think the students in Journey North are the best ambassadors our countries could offer to conserve a phenomenon like the migration of the monarchs.
But the efforts by the students are not confined to the classroom. From the backyards of Minnesota to central Mexico, there are kids in action saving the monarchs.
So that's what you need to look for, is something that small. See, like...
We've come to Texas, where the first monarchs are arriving to lay their eggs. There are students and teachers from Minnesota here too to monitor this episode in the butterfly's epic journey.
You can imagine what 50 meters further out that way it's going to be, and that's your circle here.
It's spring, and the monarchs are heading north. Like other states in their path, Texas must provide exactly the right environment for the insects to produce at least one generation to continue the journey.
Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This group of students will spend days studying the plants, insects, and birds that are all part of the ecosystem shared by the monarchs.
When it gets kind of dry like this, we sort of sprinkle it with water so that they have some moisture and they don't dry out.
The questions include whether the butterflies will find food and shelter here, or a hostile environment that threatens their existence.
And it's been really interesting to learn the struggles the butterfly faces when they migrate.
It surprised me that even little ants will kill monarch larvae.
I didn't know that either.
They'll attack the monarch, like a lot of them will, and they'll just eat it alive.
But the threat to the butterflies is much greater from humans. Biologist Bill Calvert says a new kind of corn that has a pesticide built in could wipe out millions of monarchs.
The pollen of the corn also has this pesticide in it, and it's possible that the pollen of the corn can blow off onto milkweeds, and then the monarchs eat them. It remains at least a theoretical possibility that this would have a rather devastating effect on monarchs.
They need habitat in Texas, they need habitat between Texas and Minnesota, they need habitat in Minnesota, and then they need habitat all the way back south again, and then in Mexico.
What's our question?
And all along the way there are schools with programs devoted to saving the monarchs and students that are fanning out into the environment to find out for themselves what the problems are. These 8th graders from Sunrise Park Middle School in White Bear Lake, Minnesota made the same 2,000-mile journey as the migrating monarchs. They've come to Mexico to see where the butterflies spend the winter. But first, a visit to the students who are always the first to report the arrival and departure of the monarchs. The Pedro Asensio School is so close to the butterfly sanctuary that the insects often fly right over their one-room schoolhouse.
Aquí en el Estado de México, y adelante están en su escuela.
He says, please come ahead, it's your school.
This is North America. We are here.
The snow can be as deep as your knees.
Es en el norte de los Estados Unidos, un poco sur de Canadá.
After trying to explain just how far north and how much colder it is in Minnesota, the White Bear Lake kids introduced a well-planned icebreaker.
Now you're getting it. Good job.
Homemade silly putty. A lot of fun for everyone. It's a point of connection between children who live so far apart and so differently. What they have in common is the responsibility for the world they will grow up to inherit. But this is what these students have come to see. A tiny patch of forest 10,000 feet above sea level in a remote part of central Mexico. The only destination of millions of migrating monarchs.
They just look like leaves falling around.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
Every year, Minnesota students carefully hatch monarch butterflies in their classrooms, put tags on their wings, and release them into the wild. Finding them among these millions is a real long shot.
I realized that we're probably never going to find the ones that we tagged. There's a lot more than I thought there would be.
It's a classroom where the air is full of the creatures they are studying. Overhead, a fluttering ceiling of butterflies and thousands more at their feet.
Just think of the story each one of those butterflies has. I mean, they could have been reared in a classroom somewhere. They could have come from Minnesota. They could have come from Kansas, Maine.
A lesson not lost on these students.
And it'd be really sad to lose something this beautiful.
There is a very real danger this could all be lost. Although the Mexican government has declared this small patch of trees a sanctuary, there's little money to pay for protection. The peasant owners of this land make a little cash from the tourists who come here, but it's unclear if that will continue to be enough compensation. The higher elevations of these mountains still retain a few scraps of the forest that the butterflies need to survive. But because of the never-ending quest for more land to farm, at this rate, it's only a matter of time before it's all gone.
If habitat destruction continues at the same rate, human activity will start to cause changes in population densities.
Ecologist Karen Oberhauser is one of the world's leading researchers into the plight of the monarch butterfly. She, like her peers, is stunned by the apparent 70% drop in the wintering monarch population over the past 2 years.
This year, for instance, the population is low, and we don't know if that's part of a natural cycle, or if it's due to conditions in the overwintering sites, or if it's due to conditions in the breeding season or during the migration.
So what is killing the monarchs? The answer may be anywhere between Mexico and Minnesota. The monarchs come north every summer in search of the only plant they will eat. It comes in a variety of shapes and sizes, but it's commonly known as milkweed.
There are lots and lots of eggs that the female has laid. She found these milkweed. So even a little isolated garden like this can be an important resource.
It's because many people treat milkweed like, well, a weed and eliminate it from their gardens that the butterflies have to range further and further afield. People spray herbicide on their gardens as well as thousands of acres of roadsides that are home to the milkweed in Minnesota. Naturalists point out that there are many plants that we call weeds that are essential to wild creatures like the monarch. There are hundreds of millions of monarch butterflies, but only a handful of scientists who are dedicated to their survival. One of the foremost is Karen Oberhauser, who has been studying the insect for 17 years.
Yes, you don't even like to tread on the dead ones, do you, really?
No.
We were allowed to accompany Karen and graduate student Michelle Solensky into a highly restricted area deep in the monarch sanctuary. Here, away from the tourists, they search for answers to the many questions still being asked about these unusual creatures.
Each one of those butterflies has made an incredible migration. It's flown long distances and gone through things that we can't even imagine. I just count it as one. And then it comes here and hopefully survives for the entire winter and then has to fly back again.
You have to look closely to realize the surrounding trees are actually bending under the weight of millions of butterflies that hang in huge groups like massive fruits. In the interest of research, Karen Oberhauser is allowed to actually capture samples from one of these clusters.
You can see this little tiny tree right here probably has, 15,000 butterflies on it. So I'll just reach up and gently. Okay, so we'll just hold them in here and take them back to measure them.
There is nothing for the butterflies to eat around these densely packed trees. Many die from starvation or desiccation. There's not much water here either.
That's supposedly because the mice can crawl up that far.
Predators like mice and 2 species of birds gorge themselves on this annual windfall. Scientists like Karen Oberhauser estimate as many as 40% of the monarchs die here.
See, probably what's happening now is they're sensitive to levels of carbon dioxide in the air, and that's how they tell that there are birds around. So just by us being here, they're feeling the carbon dioxide and think that there's a threat of predation.
But we're not hurting them, are we?
No, we're not hurting them unless we step on them.
These amazing creatures are so hardy that they can be captured and closely examined without any apparent harm.
What we're doing is comparing the condition of the butterflies that are roosting in the trees to those that are flying around, to those that are mating, and we compare that year after year.
There are many questions.
How can the summer butterflies only live for a month, but down here, the ones that migrate and overwinter down here live for 7 or 8 months?
Researchers believe the monarchs that come to Mexico go into a kind of reproductive diapause, channeling the energy normally used to produce sperm and eggs into staying alive. But as the season progresses, the butterflies come to life, and a large percentage of them participate in a bizarre mating ritual.
When the male pounces on the female, they fall to the ground, and there's this struggle, and it can be lengthy. It can be up to an hour.
Karen and Michelle have spent many hours carefully weighing, examining, and measuring their captives. After the details are entered into a scientific log, they are released, unharmed.
So we're done with her.
Saving the monarchs comes at a price. Maria Luisa Mondragon Cruz is from one of the oldest landowning families in this part of Mexico. For centuries, they've made their living from the very forests that are inhabited by the butterflies. Now their land has been declared a monarch sanctuary, and they can no longer cut down the trees. To try and offset their losses, the Minnesota-based Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary Foundation has contracted with Maria and her sister-in-law Rutilia to make traditional hand-woven baskets for sale in the United States. The profits will go back to the peasants. An alternative income the foundation hopes will spur further economic development for these people who have been dispossessed by butterflies.
Okay, these will probably pupate in 4 or 5 days.
Teacher Trina Wenzel has come to the University of Minnesota to pick up about 20 caterpillars.
If you keep them near a window, it would be more likely to happen while the kids are watching.
These little hungry creatures are the starting point for an unusual teaching program called Monarchs in the Classroom. The monarch has one of the most extraordinary life cycles in the natural world. It begins with a tiny white egg deposited by a female on the underside of a milkweed plant. An egg becomes a caterpillar, and a caterpillar becomes a chrysalis, and a chrysalis becomes a butterfly. A lesson in natural history that Karen Oberhauser began introducing into classrooms 7 years ago. Throughout the spring and fall, thousands of young students get a chance to watch this amazing metamorphosis. And it all happens before their very eyes in a time frame that even a first grader can understand.
Kids that struggle with other science pieces get it together with this one.
Someone get a butterfly?
Kids like those in Tom Toole's class at Wyndham Open School in Minneapolis.
We have to get as close to drink the honey water.
And what is a proboscis?
Proboscis is this little thing down there, if you can see it, that's poked into the honey water and is drinking right now. So that's pretty much what it does too, eat.
Monarch butterflies might have been made for this kind of study. They are amazingly sturdy and resilient and seem unaffected by all the attention.
And by the time they get down to Mexico, you can imagine what they might look like. How many times have we handled them in class now? What, maybe 4 times?
Yeah.
These kids are making a connection with a wild creature that they will never forget. They will remember the lessons learned in this unusual class long after the inevitable day that they set their monarchs free.
Insects are living things like we are, and they need to be cared for just like we do.
one seems to know why, but efforts to save the monarch seem to center on Minnesota. At the university, Karen Oberhauser continues her work as one of the world's most dedicated researchers and still finds time to help hundreds of teachers all over the country. And in Minneapolis, Elizabeth Howard created Journey North and Monarch Watch, so tens of thousands of school students in 3 countries can track the annual migration. It was their leadership that led to the recent formation of the Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary Foundation, the only organization in the world totally committed to protecting the biological phenomenon of monarch migration. These women have shown us all how a threat to one of nature's true miracles can unite us all. I'm Jason Davis. Thanks for joining us.